Councillors, we'll start the meeting. The time is now 6:30 and I will declare the meeting open. I'll advise the public that in accordance with Council's Code of Meeting Practice, Council meetings are recorded and webcast. The entire chamber is included in the audio recordings and visitors in the gallery may have their voice captured and webcast. By attending a council meeting, you consent to your speech or other personal information being captured, recorded and webcast. For this reason, I advise that any opinions expressed or statements made by individual persons during the course of this meeting are the opinions or statements of those individual persons and are not opinions or statements of council. All persons should refrain from making any defamatory remarks. Council accepts no liability for any defamatory remarks made during the course of the council meeting. Furthermore, all persons should refrain from making public comments about another individual without seeking the consent of that individual beforehand. Councillors, Council acknowledges the Wanneroo people as the traditional custodians of this land we are meeting on today, the elders past, present and future. We also acknowledge the Awabakal people to the east and the Darkinjung people to the south and other Aboriginal peoples who now live within the Cessnock local government area. Please stand for the council prayer. Councillor Dunn.
Most gracious God, we pray to the Council of the City of Cessnock, its members and officers, direct their work and influence their decisions to the advancement of your glory and the safety and welfare of this city, so that peace and happiness, truth and justice and sound development may be established among us. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
We've received apologies tonight from Councillor Moores and Councillor Painter, and a leave of absence has been granted for Councillor Burke. If we someone moving to accept the apologies, Councillor Hawkins, seconded Councillor Sander. All those in favour, it's unanimous. Confirmation of the previous minutes. Moving the confirmation of both sets of previous minutes from the 18th of May and the extraordinary meeting on the 4th of May. Move Councillor Hill, seconded Councillor Sander. All those in favour, it's unanimous. Disclosure of interests. Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Mayor Saville. On report number 8/2020/20576/1, the modification of consent for the Millfield development, I'm declaring a non-pecuniary significant conflict as I have an historic conflict and I will be leaving the chamber.
Thank you. No further disclosures. There are no petitions. Public address. On report PE 30/2022, I'll call David Pavey on behalf of Kim Perotta. Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Pavey. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, councillors, council officers, thank you for your time. I'm here to speak against the resolution in front of you in regards to the report that the Mayor has had. My client has an alternative view where I was contained in condition 28, namely the addition of gravel shoulders and the grass swales, the need for full-length sealing of the road, and the need for BAL sites on the intersection. With regards to the road shoulders and table drains, I refer to Appendix A of the document I handed out tonight. The imposition of this consent condition will result in the removal of a significant number of trees. A 4 metre looks like no reason why there's a change in mind from January to now. With regard to the intersection, Council justification for this condition is safety issues are a legitimate concern and is required by figure 4.9 in Osprey standards. With regards to road safety, there is no traffic crash history along Mount View Road over the past 5 years. No upgrades have been rolled over from Mount View Road in Cessnock Council traffic and transport strategies adopted last year. With respect to the intersection, Osprey guidelines suggest that the intersection may need to be upgraded where there are significant delays in vehicles turning, or where there is a cyclone issue where vehicles can't stop prior to hitting an oncoming vehicle. At this location, the site distance is greater than the recommended 185 metres the standards require, or the guidelines require. Mount View is a low traffic road and there's no significant delays with vehicles turning. The construction of the BAR would require the relocation of the power pole, land acquisition, dedication of this land as public road, and subsequent relocation of the fence line to ensure that clear zones are maintained along the western side of Mount View Road. Current construction costs would put this in the order of $300,000.
We have Councillor Hawkins is moving for an extension of time, seconded Councillor Sander. All those in favour? Councillors Jackson, Grine, Sander, Hill, Hawkins, Watton, Jerd and Saval. Those against, Councillor Olsen. I'll declare that carried. You have one further minute. Thank you.
I refer you to Appendix B, where I've shown numerous examples of where council officers haven't replied this condition to other developments or in fact their own works. Works like Duffy Road and Duffy Drive and Milton Street, Horrible Street, higher traffic volumes through traffic up to 300 vehicles an hour as opposed to 28, don't require it. The distillery on Broke Road, which was approved in the last 2 years, Broke Road has upwards of 400 vehicles per hour and probably around 20 vehicles an hour turning in, hasn't got this condition applied for it. The horse training arena of Buchanan Road, on a road that has 300 vehicles an hour, doesn't have this condition applied to it, or if it did, it hasn't been built correctly. These examples show that council officers have the flexibility to interpret the guidelines rather than apply them literally. We ask council to remove that condition for the intersection. It's not justified under Osprey guideline and applies.
And I think, no, I think, yeah. I think that's the end of the time. Are there any questions? The thing, Councillor Olsen.
Yeah, David, you highlighted a few issues there of inconsistencies with our council. Is that what you're really asking us here, to be consistent with this development as well?
I'm asking council officers that there are guidelines, Australian Osprey guidelines, which provide guidelines, not direction. So they are a recommendation of how to make good roads. And we're asking them that council officers apply that uniformly across the city, as they have done at the distillery at Broke Road, as they've done in Buchanan, as they've done in their own works at Duffy Street and at Borrowall Street and Milton Road, because so we're asking for a consistent approach across council, not maybe because of past history of being hard on this particular client, but not on others.
Yeah. So another question I just want to ask: if we were to defer this tonight, say that yourself and the applicant can talk to our planners, do you think you could come up with a solution that will keep both parties happy?
I was hoping we could come up with a solution, but at this stage, apart from talking to the acting general manager and the director of planning, we haven't had the opportunity to talk on an officer level with traffic people or the engineering people about this particular condition.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councillor Sander.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. David, thank you very much for your insight tonight, and your presentation that you've put on every councillor's desk. Can you answer figure 4.9 in Appendix C? Could you explain the rationale behind that for me, Dave? Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Saunders. Figure 4.9 in the Osro guidelines indicates, as I said before, where roads might need to be upgraded, intersections might need to be upgraded to improve road safety, or when there's turning movement issues, or when there's sight distance issues. So what I've shown you in that Appendix C is my client's spot is the traffic volumes and turning volumes are the red and yellow diamonds on the very low bottom corner. I may add that this graph starts at 0, 0, which means any intersection, if you take the figure literally, without reading the context around it, every intersection requires a BAR, BAL. Clearly that's not what is put in practice in Australia, and certainly not in put in practice in this LGA or any adjacent LGA. Some of the other ones, the distillery on Broke Road is the little diamond right above the CHR, which if you looked at those things, council's approval, if they applied this table in its isolation, should have required a CHR, which is a channellised intersection, which is a much greater intersection than what the BAL is. And if you look at the horse training area, they're sitting, in that round circle that's in between the 200 and 400. So those ones are further closer to the line between BAR and CHS, as opposed to where my client sees, he was way down the bottom corner. So in our normal traffic engineering sense, and I'll call it sense because we're all interpreting the guidelines, because they're not standards, they're guidelines that give guidance to practitioners like myself. If you're in that bottom square between the 0 and 20 and the 0 and 200, it's generally not accepted that you need to have a BAR, BAL. It's only when you're in much closer to that curve 1 that you need to start to look at these things, or whether you're triggering from curve 1 over from one side of a BAR to the more important and upgraded channellised intersection, where developments that you've recently approved on Wine Country Drive all have those sorts of channellised intersections.
Councillor Hill.
Thanks. In sticking with our discussion about consistency and talking then back to the Buchanan intersection, is there a mid-ground between the full BAR, BAL intersection and nothing that perhaps falls in line with a similar scenario as what has ended up happening out on Buchanan Road? And would that actually add any value to increasing the safety of the intersection, or would it be a sort of almost a bit of an unnecessary step?
I contend that what we're putting forward is doing nothing. What my client is suggesting is they build a 6 metre wide road from the edge of the tar on Mount View Road, 65 metres into the property on the steeper part of the drive. That connection with its normal engineering turns, which is about I'll get technical, it's a radius 12 metres probably on either side, which is what Buchanan Road have got, with or without a concrete table drain, depending on what the drainage is. That might need to be underground, just depends on the things. That's what my client is suggesting that she's prepared to build. It's not doing nothing. It is building an intersection connected to Mount View Road. It just doesn't have the added 40 metres on either side and the 100 metres on the other side that the BAR is requiring if you were to adopt figure 4.9 literally. But if you read the paragraphs before and after 4.9, you'll find that the council officers or practitioners like myself use this as a guide about what needs to happen. And if you take in road safety, you take in the sight distance, you take in the low volumes, you get pushed right out of that graph and saying nothing is required, same as what you've done on the assessment that already was done on Duffy Road and Corribalong Street. And also the new tourist information bays at Lovedale and at Oakey Creek Road, which I might add my company designed for council. They don't need to have, they weren't required to have BAR where they have caravans turning into them, potentially, or motorhomes. And in the discussion I had with the council engineering staff on those sites, we all agreed that the turning movements weren't significant enough to require that extra road work to be required. So this is where practitioners can have a discussion about where we should be on this graph, taking into account the context of good road design, because the Osro guidelines is a 9-volume thing. It's not just part 4, which is about intersections. There's drainage and there's roads and there's and the director will know what I mean about this, is that there's a whole lot of things.
I think we're straying a bit from the answer now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Apologies.
Any further? No. no further questions, we'll thank Mr. Pavey for his presentation. Councillors, will now move to report PE 30 2022. Councillor, is someone moving the recommendations?
Mr. Mayor, I'll put up a motion there that the council approve the section 4.551A application number 8/2020/2576/2 to amend condition 28 relating to roadworks to the following: that conditions 28 of development consent be amended to the registered proprietor of the land shall construct the following within the unnamed lane prior to the issue of an occupation certificate. Construct a road formation to include a 4 metre wide with 2 coat sealed pavement formation with 2 by 1 metre gravel shoulders, pipe drainage as required, and associated grass swales from Mount View Road for approximately 65 metres. And point B, the road formation to be a minimum thickness of 150mm, utilising approved DGB 20 gravel. Mayor, I'll put that motion there tonight.
Sorry,
because
before we move on, is the motion seconded? Seconded by Councillor Jerd.
Mayor, I'll put that motion up there tonight because it will resolve the issue completely. I believe that we've clearly spoken to tonight by Mr. Pavey on how this doesn't meet the guidelines that have been put up by our council. It can be the whole site can be all finalised, and these people can get on with their lives of setting up their horse training business out there without having to worry about council anymore. It will not create any accident problems. You can have accidents on any corner. If you're really concerned about accidents on this intersection, maybe council needs to go back and look at Potter's Tavern, where we were paid money to do that intersection up, and we've never done it, and that was over 20 years ago. So if we're going to be fanatical about this intersection, we need to look at it over our shoulders at what our council has done as well, and what it hasn't done. I think this is a fair result for the applicant and a fair result for council. I think our planners are a bit onerous on these people. I don't know the reason why, but if you have a look at the horse stable on Buchanan Road, what they've done there is very minimal. And if anyone drives along that road now, you'll notice that it's a never-ending flow of traffic, and horse floats come out of there, and they don't get up to speed very quickly. So I can't see any reason why we can't do this tonight, approve it, and let these people get on with their lives. And because they've been battling this out for over 2 years, and it's about time that our council showed a little bit of restraint and move forward with this development for these people.
Before we move on, I have a couple of questions for the General Manager or directors in regards to this. I'm still entitled to ask a question. I still have to consider and vote on the report, so I'm entitled to ask the question of the. Did you want to press the button?
Thank you, Ms. Val. To answer your question, Councillor Olsen, normally the chair of a meeting wouldn't get involved in debate, and certainly if they were going to, they would step down from the chair and allow the deputy or another councillor to come forward. However, asking a question is the right of any councillor, and I don't see any limitations on those questions being asked by the Mayor.
Councillor Olsen, is this a point of order or?
Asking a question is not getting involved in the debate. Surely it doesn't lead to other questions being asked by other people. So I feel that the chairman isn't allowed to ask questions or get involved in the debate. They're there to rule on what happens in the meeting.
I would comment that a councillor in the debate of a motion is entitled to ask questions outside of their 5 minutes to speak on it. They're also entitled to ask questions after they have spoken in debate, and therefore questions should be clearly not considered part of debate.
Yes.
Based on
but
historical.
you're the chairman. You're not part of the debate.
Well, I'm the one that's chairing the meeting and
You're
making
chairing the meeting, and
these
the
decisions.
chairman rules on everything that's been said in here. And if you're asking questions, how can you rule on that?
Councillor Olsen, I have made my ruling, and the general manager has provided advice that
It's wrong.
questions would not be considered part of debate, and therefore I am entitled to ask a question, which I will be doing.
Ask your question then. It's all right.
Thank you. So my question through the director is the first question is around the road works and the reduction of the meterage and how that sits with council's recommendation in the report and what would happen to the remaining section of the road. So, Director of Works.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I read the motion correctly, that the motion would upgrade the first 65 metres of the laneway, but there's no comment in there about what to do from the end of that sealed section, the 65, to the property boundary. So therefore, based on this motion, there'd be no requirement on the applicant to upgrade the rest of the road.
And my question then through the planning team is, was there a requirement to upgrade the rest of the road, and can they clarify what that would be?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the original condition required an upgrade of the road, sealing of it, and upgraded the road to into the property. I will also add that during the assessment process, an alternate option for sealing less of the road was put to the applicant. The applicant chose not to take that option and carried on with the application as submitted.
And a further question in regards to the motion in front of us, which does not enforce the condition in regards to intersection works. Does this mean there'll be no safety works done on the intersection?
That's correct.
No questions from me. So, Councillor Olsen, are you asking a question, or are you? So let me.
I sent the motion in this morning, and I got an email back from the Director of Planning saying to take out the point of any road works past the end of the 65 metres. He said it wasn't necessary and council couldn't control it. So I took it out. I was going to have conditions there for that, but I was told I had to take it out. Is that correct?
Sorry, Director of Planning.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Director of Works.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think, Councillor, the advice was that the way you'd written the motion when it came in, that there was a contradiction between a sentence above dot points above A and B, and the options were to either remove that wording or to remove dot point B. So the advice that was given was correct, based on the options that were given, which haven't translated into the motion.
Councillor Hill.
In follow-up then, a question to the Director of Works in regards to Councillor Olsen's current recommended motion. Is there any suitable additional point that could be put in place to then enforce that additional 106 to the 150 metres of gravel past the 65 metres of sealed road?
Director of Works.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so councillors would need to add a dot point to determine what did you want to do between the end of the 65 metres and the property boundary.
Councillor Hill.
I would move that an additional dot point be added with the okay of Councillor Olsen. That the additional length of the road from is it 160, 150 metres? I'm not sure exactly on there. 165 metres of road from the end of the sealed section to the property boundary be made from, is it formed gravel? It would in essence the point would match the detail originally put forward in the condition. I believe that it initially stated whatever the specification was. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
So so effectively on page 66 of the agenda, if we're looking at page 66 on the agenda, is it around dot point one there, the first dot point around that? So the wording would be that the additional length of the road from 65 metres to approximately 230 metres. Pardon? Is that the yeah. In his original one. Okay. So I think Councillor Olsen, the one coming up on screen from a 4 metre wide one-way crossfall is your additional dot point C that you may have submitted forward. So so we lose those wordings there, and we turn that into a dot point C. And the advice I've received from the director is that we would also need to include a dot point in regards to whether council requires a BAL intersection or not as part of the. So did you want to? Yeah, so we'll need some wording around that. So a dot point 2, I suppose, is it? And if a council would like to put forward some words around. So that council accepts the applicant's so if you yeah. So that council removes the requirement for the BAR intersection works. Comfortable with that? Okay. So those amendments have been accepted by the mover and the seconder of the motion. You could ask a question, Councillor Hawkins.
The term swing radius was mentioned as to how the newly formed is that a standard? Do we need to include the phrase? Was it swing radius? Is that how the intersection comes in? It's just standard. It'll happen anyway.
Director.
There's no requirement, councillor, to mention any design standards in this, which is what that swing radius is.
So it'll include it.
Okay. Is there any further debate or questions around this? No. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour of the motion? Councillors Jackson, Grine, Sander, Hill, Hawkins, Watton, Olsen and Jerd. Those against Mayor Savelle. We'll now ask Councillor Dunn to return. Okay, we'll now move on to further public speakers. Was there any further public speakers or they've withdrawn? So will we deal with that debate? So we'll now move on to report PE 31 2022, Hydro Curry Curry planning proposal. The speaker for that application has withdrawn their right to speak, but moving the motion, Councillor Hill is moving the motion recently amended recommendation from the director, and Councillor Sander is seconding that motion. Is there any debate, Councillor Hill?
Thank you, Ms. Savelle. I just wanted to speak briefly in support of this agenda item. It's been great to see the positive resolution of so many of the concerns that had been raised throughout the period of the proposal by various government and other organisations. We had a brilliant briefing that walked us through the individual steps here and there that have been made to address any concerns, and it's awesome project to see for Curry Curry, and to hopefully see some great revitalisation in regards to industry and job opportunities. I did have a few thoughts and concerns on the whole area in regards to infrastructure being put in place before developments, but that's an issue that we will be able to address further down the line when any DAs are able to come to council in regards to it. But all in all, a fantastic proposal to be moving forward with.
Thank you. No further debate. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? There was an amended recommend. We're debating this item because there was a request for public access, so it's then moved forward. However, the public access was withdrawn. General Manager.
I believe the process that we've followed with bringing the report forward is appropriate, and it conforms with our code of meeting practice.
If we want to bring an item forward, we have to put it to debate, or we have a speaker, and we never had a speaker. So how do we rule that way that it gets dealt with before everything else? We're just jumping all over the place in this meeting. I can't understand. Well, let's be consistent like we should be in every other thing.
Councillor Olsen, that is consistent to the way this has happened in past meetings,
seen this happen in the 21 years
as
I've been
the General
here.
Manager just outlined. So we've now had the motion moved and seconded, the recommendation moved and seconded in relation to report PE 31 2022. There's no further debate. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Councillors Jackson, Dunn, Grind, Sander, Hill, Hawkins, Watton and Savell. Those against, what are you voting against, Councillor? So Councillor Olsen will be recorded as voting against and Councillor Jerd against. I'll declare the motion carried. We'll now move on to consideration and adoption of all reports by Englobo. Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Mayor Savall. Having read and considered the reports in the agenda related to items GMU 14, 2022, Work Health and Safety Policy Statement Review, GMU 15, 2022, Risk Management Policy Statement, CC 45, 2022, Tender T1122223HUN, Road Safety Barrier Systems, CC 46, 2022, the Draft Code of Meeting Practice 22, CC 48, 2022, Control Document Review 2022, Revocation of Policies, CC 49, 2022, minutes of the Strategic Property and Community Facilities meeting held on the 1st of June, CC 51, 2022, the Investment Policy, CC 53, 2022, Notice of Intention to deal with matters in confidential session of the supplementary agenda, WI 37, 2022, the Tender 100489171, Public Works Kurrikuri CBD Section 1.3 Construction, WI 38, 2022, Tender T2022, 9 Klein Street Western Bridge, WI 40, 2022, Financial Assistance for the Disposal of Waste, Charitable and Not-for-Profit Organisations Policy, WI 43, 2022, minutes of the Cessnock Local Traffic Committee meeting held on the 16th of May, 2022, and CO 8, 2022, PE 16, 2022, Cessnock City Council Companion Animal Management Plan 2022 to 2026. I move that Council adopt the recommendations as printed for those items.
Are they seconded? Councillor Sander. No debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? It's unanimous. We'll now move on to Mayoral Minute MM10 2022. I'll move the Mayoral Minute as printed. This is about trying to address some of the concerns in the community around parking, and especially parking on nature strips. Council had a policy a number of years ago that was effectively called the 3 metre rule, where there was a 3 metre safe space on the footpath, and you could park up close, and whether that was an area in our local government area with quite wide nature strips, or some in the newer estates that have quite small nature strips with rolled curb. Unfortunately, that rule was not in matching with the state road rules, which means that council is no longer able to continue with that rule as even though it may have suited our local government area. We're required to have our parking rules match the state road rules, which is why council last a couple of years ago voted to remove council's parking policy because we weren't allowed to set anything separate from the state road rules. So this we'll be asking council to write to the minister and our state member for Cessnock to seek an exemption around these parking rules, so that local councils like ourselves can set the parking laws that actually suit our local government area. I think we should be given the authority as a local council to know what's best for our community and what's going to work best. And at the moment, we're operating on a statewide model, so we don't have that ability. So I will be moving that way. Any debate? Councillor Dunn.
I'll move it. It's mine first.
Councillor Dunn, sorry, was on. I think that was the machine.
Thank you, Mayor Savelle. I just want to start by saying we have not long just had a workshop on this, and previous to that workshop I represented a resident with respect to a parking issue, and I represented that resident to Revenue New South Wales, and in that process I inadvertently I won't say brought council into disrepute, but I would like to apologise to the Rangers if that seemingly was the case, because it was not my intention to do that. But in saying that, I was representing the resident on something that I believe the resident had a case for. So given that, we've since had this workshop, and we've come to the conclusion through the Chief Ranger that this representation of the state government is an appropriate way to go, and I fully support that.
Okay. Councillor Olsen.
Look, I understand what we're trying to achieve here. At our briefing here a couple of weeks ago, the Ranger stood up there and spoke to us and confused a lot of people, even yourself, the Mayor. You got it wrong. You didn't understand what they were talking about. I've sent in a photo the other day to get clarification which car was parked legally and which car was parked illegally, because they told us here that if we have our tyres next to as close to the tar, we're not parked illegally. But the second car was parked down lower, parked near a sort of a grassed dish drain, and I was told they were both parked legally. That is confusing. It's totally confusing. So now, if we've got to have our tyres parked next to the tar when it's no curb and guttering, and there is a bit of tar there to make a curb so that the water can run along, that means your car's got to be now on the inside of that tar under the current rules. But it could be still 30 metres to grass, but then put you on the road. The problem we have is we have dirt roads, we have roads that got tar 6 metres wide, we've got roads that's got tar 9 metres wide, we've got massive big footpaths, we've got everything different. And the rules are black and white for a certain road, where there's curb and guttering, certain width, and it all works. But in Cessnock it doesn't. Cessnock LGA, it doesn't work because we've got so many different types of roads. Now, my concern with this, if we get another rule, we then got to try and explain to everyone what is right and what is wrong again, and it goes round and round and round. There is no solution to this except a little bit of leniency from our rangers and consistency. I think that's where we fall into trouble with the locals is, I got booked, my neighbour didn't. What's the problem? Why did I get booked? It's got to be consistent. You either book them all, or you don't book any of them. You don't drive past an illegal car that's parked there and not book them, but then you drive on down 5 k's down the road and you book someone else. It's consistency. And then it comes back to the ranger's interpretation, or if they're in a hurry or not. Like, honestly, the footpath, some of our footpaths are so big, it's a wasted space. But then you go into Vineyard Grove and we've got narrow streets and narrow footpaths. How do we solve the issues in there? We can't make the streets any wider because the developers have got it sewn up in the state how wide the roads are going to be. So I can accept what you're trying to do, Mayor. I know you're trying to make it easier for everybody. I hope that they can come back. I'll support the motion, but I'm just pointing out all these ifs and buts that go on. I was even told by the person that answered my email that both, because I said one of these cars is double parked, I don't know which one. And they said they're not, but they are. You can't double park. That's a straight out law. You can't double park. So one of them was illegally parked. But then if only one car was there, they were both legally parked. Like, God damn, it makes it hard. It makes it hard for the person that's got this massive big footpath and no curb and guttering. It makes it hard for everybody. And then if you change the rules in our LGA and you come from Maitland, or if you go from here to Maitland and you park down there thinking you're right, they might have a different rule. It's just so difficult, this one, because there is no actual black and white for our roads. There's only a black and white for a rule. And we'll never, ever get this sorted. We just need a little bit of leniency, we need to work smarter with our rangers and the locals on how we maintain it. And that would be the best thing to solve. I hate cars that park across footpaths and block. You've got, like Mount View Road, if you walk down there and a car parks across Mount View Road footpath, you can't get through. You can't get a pram through. You can't get a wheelchair past. You have to go out in the road. Book them, definitely. But we've got to show a little bit of leniency, a little bit of common sense, and work with the community and get it right. I think is the best way. But if we can get this change of rules, yeah, great, go for it. But I think we'll really struggle with the confusion that there is in our streets and roads in Cessnock.
Councillor Sander.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will support this mayoral minute because every one of us in this chamber have had dramas with parking in Cessnock local government area, and we're not on our own. Lake Macquarie, everybody's in the same boat. I think this mayoral minute, if we go back, make representation to the state government, they cannot have one cloak rule for the city and the rural areas. It's a joke. It's like Councillor Olsen said, we've got so many different types of footpaths or roads, etc. We need some determination on this, and yeah, we need some leniency, but we certainly need a change, because what happens in Sydney CBD does not happen in Cessnock CBD, and we need to clarify big time so heading into the future we can have some clarity and the residents of Cessnock aren't scared wherever they park. Thank you.
With no further debate, I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? It's unanimous. I'll now move on to motions of urgency. There are no motions of urgency. We'll now move to report GMU 13/2022 minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee held on the 10th of May 2022. Someone speaking and moving that way, Councillor Olsen?
Yeah, I'll move the
move that way. Seconded, Councillor Hill. Speaking.
Yeah,
Councillor
I really get a little bit annoyed with these reports. There's motions there, but nothing about what the motion's for. For me, as a councillor, I can find that information. For the people sitting out here, they would have no idea whatsoever. And there should be more information in these reports coming back to council. I've raised it before. I do have a concern. I just hope that somewhere along the line, they'll take on note what the problem is. It's not just these minutes go out to everybody, to the general public. They need to know what they're reading. But I've got a question on the gifts and benefits report there. It says there was 8 gifts were offered, 5 were accepted, 2 were declined. 1 was unable to be declined and was surrendered. But then it says none were surrendered as well. So I'm just confused on the numbers there. Can someone explain that to me, please?
The General Manager.
Thank you. Councillor Olsen, I'll have to take that on notice. I don't have the report in front of me to fully answer that question. Yeah,
and see this is where I'm getting a little confused. When you go into on the next page, the internal audit report, point 2 is the committee requests the review of the high actions by the internal auditor management attention to the overdue actions. Can you tell me what the overdue actions are? Because I can't tell the general public, and they can't tell me because they can't find out. It's not in the report.
General Manager.
Thank you, Councillor Olsen. As you pointed out in your preamble, you as a councillor can find that out because you have these full reports provided to you.
Yeah.
But I do take your point that in relation to what necessarily the members of the public may not necessarily know what they are.
Yeah.
And again, I have to take it on notice as to what that item was because I don't know.
Yeah.
At this present point in time.
If you could let me know, it makes it easier than me trying to find out what it was. I haven't got time. Sorry. Yeah, that's enough on it.
Okay, no further debate. We'll put the motion. All those in favour? It's unanimous. We'll now move on to report PE 32 2022, Molly Worthington Netball Courts planning proposal. Someone moving that way. Moved Councillor Sander, seconded Councillor Grine. Any debate? No debate. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Report number PE 33 2022, planning proposal for the Cessnock Commercial Precinct. Someone moving that way. Councillor Sander, seconded Councillor Hill. Waiving your right to speak, Councillor Sander. Councillor Olsen.
Yeah, I can't support this motion tonight because we're removing the floor space ratio from this section, which can create huge problems for parking. That means, like, if a hotel wanted to expand and make it bigger, they don't work on floor space ratios for how many parking spots you're going to have because, like Peden's, when it was expanded, they never had enough space for parking, so they said they wouldn't put enough tables and chairs, any more tables and chairs in there than what they were supposed to. But if you went down there now and have a look, you'll find they're over the number what they were originally approved for. And that's what all places do. So if you take that out, that's what's going to happen in there, and we're going to find that we're going to have problems with anything with parking. We all know the parking problems we have in Cessnock. And then to remove the height of buildings from 4 metres to no height of building. So there'll be no maximum height of a building in Cessnock. Now, I'm just not sure what we're trying to achieve there, because I think that Cessnock is a country town, and I like the feel of the way it is, and I'd hate to see people thinking we're going to build high-rises in the middle of Cessnock or Curry. Or this is Cessnock, isn't it? Yeah, Cessnock. So I can't support that. I don't understand why we're doing it. I don't understand what the rationale is behind it all. I think what we have at the moment works, and I certainly won't be supporting this tonight.
No further debate. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Councillors Jackson, Dunn, Grine, Sander, Hill, Hawkins and Savell. Those against? Councillors Watton, Olsen and Jerd. I declare it carried. Now move on to report PE 34. PE 34 2022, draft amendment to the Cessnock Citywide Infrastructure Contribution Plan. Moving that way, Councillor Hill, seconded Councillor Dunn. No debate. Councillor Jerd.
Yeah, sorry. I just looking which one what this is again, because you're going a little fast for me. Because I know I put it down, but I can't remember exactly what I was doing. Let's see. Yeah, I did. What was this one over again? Oh, okay. Yeah, now I know what it is. Sorry. I kind of want to know where my submissions went, because I put a couple of submissions in against this, and it says in here there was 2 submissions that were received by council with the main issues raised was the art gallery and the swimming pool. I put in a few issues about how they were going to change the infrastructure of Cessnock, and it's not there. Oh, and I know a couple other people put in submissions on the Facebook page, because the post come up with it. I commented on how do the residents put in a submission. They gave me a link, and not only just myself, but I know a few residents actually filled out the form as well. So I'm a little unsure where they went.
The director.
Will we be able to defer the report?
So, the director.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, I have to take that on notice. I'm not aware of any submissions that were missed. That's very unusual for that to happen. But I'll just also, Mayor, just ask for a comment from the manager's strategic in terms of the implications of deferring this item.
Want to ask for a deferral? Yeah. Yes.
The manager.
Mr. Mayor, at the completion of the exhibition period, there normally is a rigorous check of submissions, and initially we didn't identify any, but there were some late submissions, late being meaning right at the end of it, and those two that were reported. Ideally, any additional, if there were additional submissions, they should be considered. And it would be ideal to defer the matter so we could address those issues before it's adopted to protect the integrity of the plan.
Thank you.
So Councillor Judd is you're moving that
Defer it for a
the
month,
motion
please.
be
Yep.
deferred.
Yes, thanks.
That's a procedural motion. Does that need to be seconded? Seconded, Councillor Olsen. All those in favour? It's unanimous.
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
We'll now move to PE 35 2022. Review of site inspection protocol. So, moving. Sorry, I just need to, from the last one, so if we could, councillors that are wishing to speak could repress the buttons. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was a motion that I've submitted to have this reviewed, I suppose, of the procedure. Basically, I'd like the quorum, as it were, the minimum requirement reduced to 3 from 6, and I'd like there to be a little more flexibility about the timing for these inspections to take place. I don't know that between 3 and 5 before the council meeting is.
So is the motion you're putting forward the one on the screen, and can you read that out?
Read that out. That the General Manager continue discussions with councillors about the most appropriate time to hold site inspections and reducing the number of required to be accepted to 3.
So is that seconded, Councillor Watton?
That's that's a very basic summary, I suppose. If I need more detail as far as where it's referred to in the policy, or can we just grasp that and that'll be discussed?
Yep.
I just
I
noticed
think
that
Councillor Hawkins is speaking to the motion.
We had
moved and seconded
a workshop this afternoon that was at 4 o'clock, and if there was a site inspection at Millfield, for example, that was proposed, you're not going to get from Millfield into town after that site inspection. So I just think I'd like there to be a little more flexibility within that to make site inspections more accessible to councillors. I know we've all got other things to do with our time, and it would be nice if these could be flexible so that we could allow that. I think there's a benefit. I'm very appreciative of the staff and their time and their expertise when issues come up that we can be on site where you can point things out and ask questions. I think that's fantastic. I think it's a great thing that the staff do provide and that we need to make these decisions. I'd just like a policy that was more flexible. Thank you.
Councillor Dunn.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vole. I do support Councillor Hawkins in this with respect to the fact that 3 isn't a number that's just been pulled out of the air. There are 3 councillors in every ward, and when there is a site inspection, at least for the councillors in the ward to be present, 3 is a number that we need to consider. And I know most of the councillors here do talk to each other in terms of communication, and to get three councillors as a minimum to a site inspection, I think is quite adequate. And I know if I can get to one with my other Ward A councillors out in Ward A, for example, in Millfield, I wouldn't expect the Ward D councillors in Curry to get out to Millfield for a half an hour when there's, it could be argued that there's no real need. So, three is a significant number, and we're just hoping that the ELT will actually consider that.
Okay, no further debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Moving on to PE 36 2022, Development Application Performance Monitoring Report, March 2022. Councillor Olsen, you're moving that way. Is the report seconded?
Yeah.
Councillor Hill, speaking. Councillor Olsen.
Yeah, I just during the week I sent an email to Mr. Mickelson about this report, and it says the average time for DAs is 36 days, but I was trying to work out when was that time from, and it's basically it could be any time from the applicant putting the review in. Correct me if I'm wrong on how I read this. That once the application comes into council, it could take up to 12 working days before it gets into our system. Is that correct? Yes, correct. So they're not counted in them 49 days. No. So, 36 days, sorry, 36 days. So, it actually, it gives you a false sense that we're doing things really quick, and I just think that it's a little bit of misunderstanding for some people saying 36 days. You add 12 working days to that could be, that's at least 2 full weeks, maybe up to 3 weeks added on to the time frame of getting your DA approved. Now, that could be just for a shed, it could be for subdivision of a block of land, it could be, a mum and dad development application isn't easy when you're not doing it all the time. If you're a Masterton Home or Mojo or someone like that who's putting applications in all the time, they know the process and they can get it in a lot quicker. I just think that I think we should be showing that a little bit more accurately, that from the time we get it, it can take up to 12 days before it gets into our system. And then these days are stopped because we might ask the applicant for more information. That's another problem where I have with the mum and dad applicants. They don't do it every day. There should be I'm assuming you have a checklist when they get the DA in, but something must be going wrong. They need to find more information out later on, not supplying the right information. Maybe the person talking to them might think they understand and they don't. I don't know. But that's a little bit of a concern for me, for the average person that's putting in a DA. Could be a garden shed or whatever, a swimming pool or whatever, I don't know. But my other problem I have is I had 2 concreters come and see me in the last week or two, saying to me, can we, when these mum and dad developers are building things, can we tell them more directly that they have to have a construction certificate? It is in the report. When it goes out to them, the DA approval goes out to these people, it is in there to say that they have to have a construction certificate. I'm not saying it's not there. It is there, but can we put it in bold red letters on top of the page? You must get a construction certificate before you start work, because concreters are going to sites, start digging, ringing up to get council to come and approve it, and they're saying you haven't got a construction certificate. That changes their whole work day. They have to stop and find another job. Now, these are small business people that's trying to run a business and support a family, and because that gets delayed, they've done could be a full day's work, and they've got nowhere, and they're not going to get paid until the construction certificate comes through to them, and that could be up to 45 days, I think it is, something like that. 45 days, am I right with that? 45 days, something like that. Up to. It can be less. It can be 25, I think it was, minimum. So that's another 3 to 4 weeks. Put it in behind, and everything they've done might be destroyed with the weather. So I'm not asking you to change the world, but maybe just stamp it on big red letters. Get a construction certificate, or you can't do any work. Because most people don't read the whole approval. All they know is they've got an approval. Let's go and get this concrete in. Let's get it done, and just be more user friendly with the DA people, the applicant who's putting it in. Thank you. Yeah.
Director of Planning.
Thank you, Mayor Saval. Look, yeah, understand and take on board those points. I think with anything, yes, if you're a mum and dad developer who does this once in a lifetime, the process can be daunting. The council does provide a lot of information on its website about the process. We also provide a duty planner service and a duty building surveyor service. So if people are a bit unsure, they can come into council, ask all the questions about the information they need. There's various avenues they can go through to get that information. The other point is that the state government has forced all applications now to go through the planning portal, which of course that can be daunting for some people. They're not used to doing it online, things like that. Again, we can help them with that. But again, for people who are not so familiar with the system, they are being forced to put it in the planning portal, and they may not appreciate the level of information they need to supply, and that's why sometimes when we get to process the application, we've got to check that all the information is there, because we will not start processing an application until we have all the relevant information. So sometimes that can be frustrating for an applicant in that they didn't know the plans had to be to a certain scale or something like that, and so we have to go back. But again, I guess the plea from myself and my department to councillors who are talking to residents in this situation is make use of the services we offer at council pre-DA to make sure that they've got everything in place to make sure their application goes through as quickly and smoothly as possible, because if all the information is there, we can process it real quick. But if there's just something missing, it can, if you've got to get plans drawn up, it can take weeks to get that sorted.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
No further debate. We'll now put the motion. All those in favour? It's unanimous. We'll now move to report CC 47 2022 donations under section 356 rates relief. Councillor Hill.
Yes, Mayor Saval, I'd like to move an alternate recommendation for this agenda item in stating that Council accept the application from the Western Masonic Centre and grant a rate subsidy for the 22-23 rating year, and then the General Manager write to the applicant advising of Council's decision according to the rate subsidy policy.
Seconded, Councillor Sander. Any debate? Councillor Olsen.
Just a question. This is a not-for-profit community group that uses this hall. Is that correct?
Director.
Through you, Mayor. That's correct, Councillor Olsen.
Yeah. I'm just. I have to be honest. I didn't read this report properly. Why did we refuse it? Why was it application not granted rate subsidy? What was the reason?
Director.
Through you, Mayor. Councillor Olsen, the application wasn't received within the required time frame. The application wasn't received within the required time frame, so a report came to you in April with all of the organisations that did put forward a request for a rate subsidy. Right. This one was not provided in that time frame and has been provided since that time.
Right. So do they have to apply every year?
Through you, Mayor. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dunn.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Saval. The only thing I'll add to this is there was a rationale behind us creating this policy in the first place, and that was because there were a lot of people that we didn't believe that were on the list to get a subsidy were getting a subsidy. So in the last term of council, we actually created this policy to basically allow the people that were deserving of the rate subsidy to get it, and put a little bit more control around the money we give away for free. And although, given that this is a not-for-profit, I don't have a problem with supporting this. It just frustrates me that we do have a policy that says we have a time frame for them to get it in, and there's a reason why we put that policy up, that that this is actually coming to council. I would have thought that, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I would have thought that the applicant would have been given a directive that we have a policy in place and that they needed to wait until the next review of this rather than it come to council outside of the terms of reference of the policy.
No, is that a question or was that
No, that's a statement.
Yep. Okay. No further debate. We'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Councillors Jackson, Dunn, Grind, Sander, Hill, Hawkins, Watton and Saval. Those against, Councillors Olsen and Jerd. Declare it carried. We'll now move to report CC 50 2022 investment report May 2022. Moving that way, Councillor Hill, seconded Councillor Dunn. Debate, Councillor Olsen.
Yeah, Mayor Saval, page 214 on this report, on the top, the developer contributions, we have 25 million sitting there. And I've asked this before, what's it all for? And we don't know. As councillors, we don't know what it's all for. And I don't think it would be that hard for council to supply us with that information so that we know where the money is sitting and what it is identified for. Developer contributions are always identified for certain areas, certain jobs, whether it be swimming pools, libraries, whatever. But if we don't know where this money is sitting, we might be able to, as councillors, say, well, we've got $1 million sitting here and we want to do this on that sort of section of road. Why don't we find a little bit more and get that road done? We don't know what's there. Only people that know what's in there is staff. It's been growing over the years. Some of that money's been there for over 20 years. And I think as councillors, we should know what it's all identified for. And I would like to see that we get some sort of report telling us at the end of every year would be great. End of every financial year to know what we've got sitting there, if any of it is going to be identified that we're going to spend in the next 12 months and what we're not going to spend, so that we know as councillors what we have sitting there and where we can look at helping the people, because it's pointless having money just sitting there, 25 million sitting there for another 25 years. I'd like to see if we can spend it and get it spent in the areas that we need it spent and what it's identified for. So is it possible that we can get a report at the end of every financial year of what is in that 25 million?
General Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Saval. Councillor Olsen, I agree with your sentiments, and I will point out that the financial statements which are published every year include a range of information in relation to the balances held within our developer contributions, or the old Section 94. But certainly if we need to make it a little bit clearer to council, we can include a regular update as part of the strategic planning.
Yeah.
6-monthly update, which is provided to council.
Yeah, once a year.
Our Section 90.
Sorry.
Our Section 94 plans are also published on our website, so they usually have the totals of the sitting in there. And we certainly do actively pursue and look what's in there and see whether or not we can use them in relation to our works program. So we're a bit like you. We want to spend them as well. However, as you'll be well aware, each individual plan has a number of subsections, and whilst 25 million might look like a significant amount of money, that is broken up into a number of different pots, and there's not necessarily the amount of money that we may need for individual projects. But we'll certainly take your question on board, and we'll have some appropriate responses.
Yeah. Can we get that into motion that we get it once a year, or does that need to be put into the motion?
Once a year, certainly as part of our financial statements. There is a fully dedicated note that covers off on developer contributions. They cover reviews, provided to council on a quarterly basis. Just giving you the undertaking that will also include within the, I think it's 6 monthly updates from our strategic planning group, who control the purse strings, if you like, in relation to developer contribution plans. And we can certainly include that as a 6 monthly update to council.
Yeah, the other thing, if I may ask, is some of that money might have been sitting there for that long and it's never ever going to be used. Is there any way that council can apply to any state government in any way that we can combine that money to be able to be spent on the community on benefit that will benefit the community in a whole in the region that the money was?
General Manager.
Thank you. Councillor Olsen, you may recall the previous council repealed a number of older developer contribution plans 5, 6 years ago, or 4 or 5 years ago. That is a way that you can free up, if you like, those monies. Otherwise, the monies, as they are collected under a current plan that is still active, has to be spent on those purposes for which it was raised. So in short, no, you can't do what you want without repealing the whole plan.
Yeah.
And that obviously has a range of other implications.
Yep. Thank you.
Councillor Dunn.
Yeah, just a question. Further to Councillor Olsen's question about reporting that back to us, is there any possible way that can be incorporated into the quarterly business statement, or is that out of the scope of the business statement?
General Manager.
So you're talking about through the quarterly budget review statement, Councillor Dunn? Yeah. If I might just defer to the CFO, I think it's already included in a format.
Oh, it's just flashing green. Okay, red. Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. We do already have a breakdown of developer contributions within the quarterly budget review statement. It's very similar to the reserves printout that we have here. It doesn't go into a lot of detail. The expectation is in our future budgets is that we'll provide a more detailed breakdown of sources of funding where you'll be able to see where developer contributions go, but our systems aren't quite, I guess, intricate enough to deal with that as yet. So there's a lot of manual work that we have to do in the background. We do have new systems coming on board, which should allow us to do that.
No. Councillor Hawkins.
Could I just clarify? Can I inquire of council this information? Could I ring the director and say, could you explain this to me? Like, this information isn't a secret that we can only get once a year. Can I ring up and ask the question that Councillor Olsen, if I've got a question about this, there's somebody at council that I can ring and say, could you explain this to me, please?
The General Manager.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Hawkins, we can answer questions from any councillor at any time around issues. If they need a bit of research, we'll do that.
Ask for a special report or anything like that.
But also, we'll go back to my original statement in Councillor Olsen's first series of questions. A lot of the developer contribution plans are actually published on our website as they sit, so you can go and look at what individual contributions and the like have been made. So there are a range of opportunities there, and I know the Department of Planning is also undertaken recently in the last 12 or 18 months some requirements for these to be a little bit more transparent, if you like, in the public domain. And I know the Strategic Planning Manager was working on those responses and outcomes, and I recall the report to Council 12 or 18 months ago around that, because we had similar questions asked by a prior councillor about how we can track those sort of things as a member of the public, if you like, off our website. So there certainly are a range of ways that you can access that information.
Yeah, thank you.
There being no further speakers, I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Report CC 52 2022 Resolutions Tracking Report. Moving that way, Councillor Olsen. Moving seconded, Councillor Hill. Councillor Olsen speaking.
Yeah, there's two issues in here. On page 244, the working with Cessnock Correctional Centre motion there. It says on the 27th of April an email was sent to Corrective Services seeking a meeting to discuss options. Has there been any meeting organised as yet?
Director.
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor. So just as of yesterday, Councillor, we have received a response back from Correction Services, looking to make a date somewhere in the next couple of weeks. In the next couple of weeks, we're at their discretion as to when Correction Services can meet us.
Yep.
But they have responded to our emails in the last couple of days.
Right, good. That's good to hear. There was another one I had here somewhere. I just got to find it. Or am I dreaming? Maybe I'm not. I thought I had another question. Sorry. Too big a tracking report. No, that was it. Sorry.
With no further debate, I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Moving on to WI 39/2022, Waste Voucher Proposed Improvements and Amendment to Waste Management Policy. Moving that way, Councillor Hill, seconded Councillor Sander. Is in a debate speaking Councillor Olsen.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Savelle. Look, I'm disappointed with this report completely. I think first question I've got to ask is, how do we reduce our waste? If anyone's got some ideas around the table, could they put them up for me, please? Because that's all I ever hear is we're doing this so we reduce our waste. How does someone reduce waste? A family of 4 or 5, a family of 7, how do they reduce their waste? Now, I'm living by myself now, so my bin isn't even half full. But how do families survive? With what we've done here, what we're going to do here, we're going to still give you 4, from my understanding, 4 general waste vouchers, but only 250 kilos. Now, I know that the average is below 250 for every time someone goes out there. But we're also going to reduce the number of times your general waste bin gets picked up. It's going to be halved. So we're taking and taking and taking off people. We're going to give them 8 vouchers, is it? I think it's 8 vouchers for recovery vouchers, for recycling, organics or recoverable resources. So if you've got something that's steel, you can take in and drop it into the recycling area. But if you've got nothing that's recyclable, we're taking 1,000 kilo off these people. I personally think I would rather everyone put their waste into the correct place, which is our waste depot, not in the bush. I don't know how many people go out in the bush and have a look around here and how bad it is around our local LGO, how much rubbish is in the bush. And it's because of the cost of going into the tip. Some people are too lazy, some people don't care. But whatever you're reducing the amount of opportunity you've got for a ratepayer to get rid of their waste legally and for free, well, it's not for free, they pay for it. They pay $88 per year for these vouchers. They pay for them. And only averaging around 30 to 35% of people use the vouchers. So we've got a lot of people don't need them, but there are genuinely people that need them. And there's people, I haven't used a voucher in years because I don't produce a lot of waste. But I haven't got a big yard like I used to. When I had my 5 kids at home, I would take a trailer load of rubbish to the dump every 3 to 4 weeks. I had that much rubbish coming down with the trees and everything else in my yard. And once you mix the stuff up, grass and branches, you can't recycle it. It had to go into the tip face. So we've got to make sure that we're getting, the people are getting what they want. Now, if we're going to reduce the vouchers to 1,000 kilo, why can't we at least give them something they want, which is a curbside pickup? But we haven't even considered that in here. It's not in the report. We're going to reduce our vouchers, reduce the kilos on our vouchers, unless you've got recyclables or recoverables. Now, not everybody has recyclables, recoverables, and not everybody has 1,000 kilo of waste every year. But I don't want any of that waste in the bush because it's a blight on a society and it costs us to get it back, get it picked up. And if we don't pick it up, it only gets worse and worse. So the more you push people away from the tip, the worse it is. I like the idea, what we put forward as independents, we put forward a card system where you had 1,000 kilo, and every time you went in, you took whatever weight come off that 1,000 kilos and a curbside pickup. That would have worked. It would have worked, and it might. This isn't what we shouldn't be looking at. Is how we're going to reduce our costs. It's how we're going to make sure the people of the community that pay the rates here and vote us in here get what they want. And a lot of people want a curbside pickup. I'm not in favour of it, but if the people want it, I'll support it. This I can't support because from what this originally was brought into council for back in the 90s was because of Bob Carr and the levy they put on waste. And now that levy is bringing in $700–800 million a year to the state government, and we get nothing out of it. Nothing out of it. If they didn't do that, we wouldn't have this problem, and the voucher system's been played with and played with and played with. And the best thing is that 4 vouchers went out to the people, and anyone that wanted to use them could use them. We don't have to get someone registered on a system to use them, because if my next door neighbour's going to the tip and got half a trailer load, I'll throw my rubbish in with it. I might give them my voucher. But under this system, we're not allowed to unless we get someone that's registered with council, and that's a blight on the whole system.
Councillor Sander.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was never, ever be in favour of a curbside pickup. Just looking at the areas around our local government area, Lake Macquarie, Stevens, Newcastle, the stuff stays on the footpath for ages, and then you have your curb crawlers go around and spread the stuff everywhere. I've never been in favour of it. This voucher system is the best of the bad bunch, I believe, and trying to get the intent of this motion is to, and the way it's been written, this report, is to actually get people to think about when they go to the tip or the waste recycling centre, to get them thinking about just not sticking everything together in one pile and throwing it in the end result bin that's costing council a lot of money annually, but to think about what they're recycling and how they're doing it. And like Councillor Olsen did say, it's a lot of rubbish to take to the dump if it's for 250 kilos, unless it's very heavy. But I have pruned trees many times, and we do have a lot on the trailer, and it's lucky to make 100 kilos. And I use a waste voucher. So we're trying to, I believe this is trying to get people more educated in how they recycle their areas at home, and reduce council's costs again, because we're not putting so much over the weighbridge into the tip. Thank you.
Councillor Watton.
Thank you, Mayor Saval. Just a couple of questions and a couple of queries to answer this debate. I actually agree with you, Councillor Sander. I hate the idea of a curbside pickup. I've been approached, like Councillor Olsen has, about the potential of having a curbside pickup, but in the last briefing that we had, I raised the question of liability. If you have a piece of sheet metal that flies off in a storm, cuts off a kid's leg, like worst case scenario, but it's a potential, who's liable? We're going to be liable. It's on Council Nature Strip. So I have huge issues. Accessibility would be fantastic, but it's an eyesore. It's a safety issue to me. You can't please everyone. 250 kilos seems to be the average usage of each voucher going into 2020, 2021 in lockdown years, so it's a little bit strange, but that's on average. So the voucher seems to meet that quota. I do have a question surrounding, if you're a large family, I have 5 kids personally, I represent large families within the LGA. We go through a lot of waste. And is there a potential of applying for a weekly service or flexibility?
I think, Councillor Watton, you're referring to the general waste collection service, yes, which is different to the motion before us, and there will be plenty of engagement and discussion with councillors in a future briefing to discuss those those things, but that's not not in relation to this. It's just about the vouchers tonight.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of melded them together.
Yeah.
It was a good presentation. And just with the vouchers itself, just one last point from my end. I also raised a question at the briefing about cost effectiveness of mailing out each voucher. We had a breakdown, and I think it was about $2.50 per actual voucher mailer. That's a huge expense and a huge impost on council. I'm all for the favour of, going as, systems, based possible, like turning it into and encouraging the citizens of LGA to go electronic where possible, because it's a huge cost. That costs a lot of money to mail out each individual voucher. I know it's not going to please everyone, but it is a cost saving in that matter. So yeah, I'd just like to raise that as well with this matter. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And if I could just ask a question of the director to clarify some information that came up in the discussion around neighbours being required to register to take other neighbours' waste. My understanding was that that's never been the policy, and they would just need to show their own ID and part of their waste voucher. This policy was only in regards to contractors using waste, and that's what is being amended tonight. Director. Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So last year, council introduced a service for elderly residents, which allowed waste contractors to register with council, become contractors that they could use to take their waste with their vouchers. This motion is to expand that to the whole of the community, to allow them to give their vouchers to a contractor who's doing some work for them and take that waste to the Waste Management Centre.
Okay, with no further debate, we'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Councillors Jackson, Dunn, Grind, Sander, Hill, Hawkins, Watton and Savell. Those against, Councillors Olsen and Jerd. I'll declare it carried. Report WI 41 2022 2021-22 outdoor pool season review. Councillor Hawkins.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. There's a motion on the screen. I'll read that out if I need to. Council notes the information in the report with regard to the ongoing program options at Cessnock's aquatic facilities, that the General Manager provides a further report to Council with costs, funding sources and other impacts of Council for A, issuing the free family pass voucher to all children completing the New South Wales Department of Education Intensive Learn to Swim program, and including information on the options to extend this free pass to include any other Learn to Swim programs run at council pools. B, holding a free entry and community celebration for the launch of the splash pad at the Cessnock swimming pool, which would be for the 3 days of the October long weekend. Holding free entry and Community Australia Day celebrations and barbecue at Cessnock, Branxton and Curry pools on the 26th of January, Australia Day.
This motion seconded. Councillor Dunn.
If I'll just briefly speak, Mr. Mayor, we've had a briefing on the success, I suppose you'd say, of Council's free access pool day initiative. This is following on from that, with particular point B, the launch of the pool season being the October long weekend, and the fantastic new splash pad facility that's $1 million worth of community infrastructure that we want to celebrate and encourage as many people to come along and try that. It's in a very high visibility location, so I think it'll be great that the most people possible can come and enjoy that facility. And then I think the pool using communities have discussed the Australia Day and the barbecue concept, and I think it'd be a great way to get behind celebrating all things Australian, that is swimming pools and barbecues and communities. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Here, Councillor Olsen.
Yeah, just on the motion there, just a couple of questions. Can we be guaranteed that the splash pad will be finished by October?
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we're in the throes of finalising the operational requirements for the splash pad, and expecting it to be operational at the start of the pool season.
Right. Okay. So also, we're not going to have the 3 days like we used to. The free Sundays that we used to have. The 10 free Sundays. Are they gone? Well, that's the motion. I'm just going off the motion that's there.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So, no, councillor. As you can see, this is a change to the family fun days, the free family fun days, which I think there was 10 in the past, and we held one last season.
Yeah.
And this report was about options to do something different, and for council to consider.
Right. So my problem I have with the pool, I feel pool users are punished because they swim. They have to pay to get in. Like if someone wants to go train for a soccer or rugby league, they go and run out on the field and don't pay a cent. But every time someone goes into the pool, they have to pay to get in there or get a season pass, which isn't cheap. I feel that's a bit of an impost on one sport and not on others. And I've looked at the figures here, like this year, $172,000 income from the pool. Like, the operational cost of 1.2 million. The operational costs aren't going to change, but if we weren't charging people to use the pool, do you think we'd have more people using the pool? Do you think that the people that probably don't have pools in their backyard, can't afford pools in their backyard, are probably the people that would really need our swimming pools? And I'm an advocate for free entry to our pools at all times. And then if you had free entry at all times, it might cost the council $170,000. But it's a facility that's paid for by our ratepayers for the ratepayers to use. Now, a lot of people don't want to use these pools, but if we put a decent cafe in there, you might find we might make more money out of the cafe in there, and that money would recoup some of that lost income. But allowing our kids to get into a pool on a hot day to cool down for free, I think is a benefit to the whole community for a very minimal outcome of $172,000. I'm sure we've wasted more than that in the last couple of years in doing a few things around this community. And I think if we were genuinely concerned about getting people into swimming pools and getting them to learn to swim, etc., we would completely consider what I'm saying is being fair to all sport users and not punishing a swimmer or a water polo player because they're going into a pool. We still maintain soccer ovals. We put up lights at soccer ovals. We put in grandstands. We do this, we do that. We spend money on them as well, but we don't charge them to use the facilities. It's a very minimal lease for a community group to use a sporting oval, and we would never get that sort of money back. But I think to be fair to all users, we need to be considering making it free access for everybody into our Cessnock and Branxton pools, not Curry. Curry is it's run by a private company, and I think Cessnock and Branxton pools would help, but it would show that we care about the community and those that can't really afford to have a pool in their backyard or get to a beach on a Sunday, on a hot day, and be close to home.
General Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Savale. Just a point of clarification, Councillor Hawkins, in dot point 2A, are you talking about all three pools or just the two outdoor pools? When you say council swim programs run at council pools, just for clarity for when the report comes back. So all three facilities. Yep, that's fine. Thank you. Just need clarification.
Okay. No further debate. You don't require that to be listed? No. So no further debate. We'll now
clarify that first point. It says issuing a free family pass entry voucher to all children completing. So if Mr. Watton, Councillor Watton, was taking his son or daughter to learn to swim, could his whole family go? They could. What if he had a carer take them? Family member, say a brother or a sister or an auntie or someone.
This was a recommendation in the report. Most of that point is straight from the report from the staff, so I might refer to the director. But I think my understanding of it would be that the learn to swim programs are a separate thing. This would be a voucher provided to the participants as a separate day to come in on a separate day to the pool subsequent to a learn to swim. So it wouldn't matter if Councillor Watton had a carer take a child to the learn to swim class. The voucher could be used by Councillor Olsen and the family separately. But I'll ask the director to clarify that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the option was to issue a family pass to the child, and then the whole family could come down and have a swim together after doing a learn to swim class.
Yep. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so we're now putting the motion. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Moving on to WI 42 2022 Curry Rugby League Sporting Grounds. Moving that way, Councillor Hill. This is the motion seconded. Councillor Sander. Speaking, Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Savelle. I just wanted to speak briefly in my support of this report coming back to Council. I've been really pleased to see the information that was provided to us councillors in the report that I had requested in my previous notice of motion. The report there also outlines that the operational plan for 2022-23 will include money set aside for updating the master plan for the full Kurri Sporting Facilities site there in town, with a goal to consult with the community and relevant groups during that process, the master plan being updated to ensure that everyone is able to have some input on what we want to see for the future of the Kurri Central Sporting Facility. And I look forward to the community consultation going ahead in future. Thank you.
Yeah. No further debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Moving on to WI 44 2022, minutes of the Cessnock Local Traffic Committee meeting held on 20 September 2021. Councillor Olsen?
Yes, Mayor Savelle, the intersection that we all have been talking about.
So are you...
Are you
asking a question, or we need someone to move?
I want this to be deferred and sent back to the Traffic Committee, and ask the Traffic Committee to actually go out and talk to these people on this intersection and read all the objections that were put in before it comes back to council.
So refer to the director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So, Councillor, you can't refer it back to the Traffic Committee. All you can do is either not endorse. You cannot refer this back to the Traffic Committee. The Traffic Committee has made a recommendation to Council for the intersection. Council can now decide to either endorse that recommendation or not endorse that recommendation.
Okay, so I'll move that we don't endorse
so
that.
Councillor Olsen, if I'll just jump in there was an alternate dot point 2 that may be brought up on the screen that might assist you in moving that way.
Which one are we looking at?
So the one on the bottom of the screen that says...
Yeah, dot point 1's the one at Curry, Barton Street, Curry. The second one is the council.
Sorry, it should be words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't endorse the works.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, moving that way, Councillor Olsen, seconded Councillor Hill.
Yeah. The reason is I think every resident or every council's had messages from residents over there. I've had numerous phone calls, numerous emails, and when we had the briefing here, I seen that what they put up there. I said, no, there's no way I could support that. It's actually making the intersection more dangerous. For a local that lives there, they would tell you that the stop signs aren't the best solution there, but they work better than what has been proposed by the traffic committee, not our traffic, the traffic committee. If there's going to be an accident on that intersection at the current point in time with four-way stop signs, most of them will be a very minor incident because people don't know who has right of way. And it's a simple process of whoever's, you give way to your right. It's not that hard. I'm old enough to understand that rule. What we don't want to do is make it dangerous for residents that live on that corner, the people that live in Doyle Street on the dead end side. Well, if there was an accident on that corner, would not be able to get out, and this is going to create that problem with the Ferguson Street coming from McDonald's into Doyle Street, having right of way over everyone, will mean that they can go through there quicker, so they'll get through there quick to beat the traffic lights. That's why the four-way stop sign went in there. At that time, when they went in there, it's the only options we had available that was fix the problem at that point in time. It was 20 years ago. Now, there are other options, but I can't support this one. The residents have ideas that live over there, if anyone wanted to go and talk to them. But we need to listen to the people that live there. What annoys me is we got it deferred so we could go and do community consultation, and then it comes back to council without it going through traffic committee again. It comes back to us. Well, what was the point of having consultation if we don't talk about it, what the people said to us? So that's very disappointing for me from being a councillor, and disappointing for the residents over there, but certainly not doing anything at the moment is probably the best solution for what we have over there. Thank you.
Just before we move on to the next speaker, if we could, had a request to just amend the first point. So after it says resolution of the ordinary council in the top, if we could add in a comma as amended to clarify that we are amending the minutes, like making changes. So we'll now move Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Vole. I think this is the appropriate thing to do. Ultimately, where we're at is when the four-way stop signs were introduced, they were introduced at a time where that was the most appropriate treatment for that intersection. But legislation has changed, and the size of the city's changed, and the size of the CBD's changed. So although it was an appropriate treatment then, it's not necessarily the right treatment now, but the treatment that we've been given to adopt isn't also the most appropriate treatment for both the residents and us. So for us to basically not endorse this, it's not saying we don't want anything done, it's just that we don't appreciate the full extent of what the ramifications of this particular design will have on the local residents. So again, this is the most appropriate way of dealing with it.
Councillor Sander.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for the Director of Works and Infrastructure, if I may. Could we leave that intersection signposted as is?
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So if council doesn't endorse this, then that's exactly what will happen.
Thank you.
So no further debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillors Dunn, Grine, Sander, Hill, Hawkins, Watton, Olsen, Jerd, Saval. Those against? You are for. So so it's unanimous.
Come on, we've already.
Moving to report BN 19/2022, prioritising roadworks. Councillor Jerd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My notice of motion is prioritising roadworks, that the General Manager...
So we'll move the motion
Yep.
as is.
I think Paul has got... I'll put it as this and then he's got a...
And seconded Councillor Olsen.
Yep.
So speaking, Councillor Judd.
That the General Manager investigate and report back on the road funding, including the current funding level, any additional funding and options on how to address any underfunding. Then that the General Manager also reports on how we prioritise on roadworks. I decided to do this notice of motion after speaking to a lot of residents in my ward that their main concern is road safety and the lack of roads getting done. After speaking with Council about Sandy Creek Road in particular, and after last Council meeting, I've brought this motion to see how we can find more funding for our roads, to listen to the residents with their biggest concern, which is roads being in a terrible, unsafe state. That we as councillors help the residents in getting the funding and prioritising it where it needs to go. This is all about safety, and I don't want a major accident from the state of the roads to be on my conscience for inaction. I really hope that we will support this motion for the residents. The rationale is council annual report. Let's take a second. Indicate that over the past 2 years, there have been an increase in the assets backlog, with the last estimate increasing to 32 million. Council infrastructure prioritisers adopted by council identifies road funding as its number one priority. This report will help identify where there is a funding issue contributing to the current condition of our roads. This will also assist council and staff in planning for the future to improve our roads. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Mayor Savale. I do have a small change to those dot points if the mover and seconder would take it on, and that is the General Manager investigate and report back to the Road Review Committee on assets funding, including current funding levels and any additional funding and options on how to address any underfunding. And dot point 2, that the General Manager also report on how we prioritise on roads. And just with respect, firstly, to that, why I raise assets funding as opposed to roads funding, because specifically the Sandy Creek Road, a lot of it's driven by our assets, including bridges, and we really need this to cover main road assets like bridges, for example, and that it comes back to the to the Road Review Committee, because we as a group of councillors, when this report comes back, need to basically have that round table opportunity for us all to have input into this report before it comes to council. So we are all on the same page, and we do all agree on where this is heading. So hopefully the mover and the seconder will take those amendments.
So the mover and seconder are happy to accept the amendments.
Why do we want it to go to the Roads Review Committee and not back to the full council? Why would you want
Again, so we can actually get around the table and have a conversation around it to see where we want to go. That committee level is a good forum for us to be able to have open discussions backwards and forwards, where we don't have that ability at the council chambers when we're given a report to accept on the night.
Yeah, fair enough.
And the minutes of the committees do end up back at the
it ends up back
council
here,
anyway.
yeah.
So mover and seconder are happy to accept that. So that now becomes the motion. So no.
Yeah, I would like to speak on it.
Speaking on that, Councillor Dunn.
As Councillor Jerd said, this has come to us because specifically in respect to Sandy Creek Road, and just recognising the residents of Porrabulong and their frustration with Sandy Creek Road. But firstly, I'd just like to add that Mayor Savale and myself took a drive along a few roads before the last council councillors, when we look at this, we are looking in terms of all of the council LGA, and it's very difficult given that we as council have gone through a catastrophic fire, 2 catastrophic floods and a pandemic, to simply just say, you know, we've missed 1 or 2 particular roads. It's an ongoing problem with respect to resourcing and staffing, and if it was such a simple fix, it would have been done. But going back to Road Review Committee, we established that in 2017 with the purpose of reviewing policy and strategy and getting that nexus between the operational plan and the resourcing strategy. And we've done all of that now, and we're at a point where, thank you, Councillor Jerd, for bringing this, but this will allow us to look at basically the prioritisations of what goes into those strategies. But I'd also add that prioritisation is only a symptom of not having all of the policies correct in the first place. If we have the policies correct and we're delivering the way we need to deliver, a list of prioritisations is secondary to that because the work's actually getting done. So if we have all of those processes in place, that work doesn't need to be prioritised because it's all getting done. So hopefully on the back of all of the work we've done over the last 4 or 5 years, this will basically summarise that and give us a very clear indication going forward of where we want to be.
Councillor Olsen.
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa Val. Look, it's good to see Councillor Jerd bringing this to council. It shows that she's learnt very quickly that there's not enough money, and that if you want to get something done, you've got to ask how we can do it. I like the idea of prioritising our roadworks so that, like our Director of Works explained, he wants to know a year in advance on what work he wants to do so he can be planning that work so that the following year it can just flow on. It's a perfect idea. It's how you project plan. And I support that 100%. That's why we need a prioritised roadwork system. Like, it's all right saying we rank our roads 1 to 5, 1 being perfect and 5 being crap. Sorry about the language, but that doesn't mean we always do 5s, because 5s might only have 1 or 2 cars on it a day, but a 3 might have 10,000 cars a day, and you'd get more value out of fixing the 3 and a longer lifetime out of that money spent. And if we had all this roadworks prioritised in a list that the Director of Works would have, and we could get a 3-year plan out of him every year, just updating it, then if we as councillors come in and say, look, this road's fallen apart and it's highly used, how do we get it up the list? And we ask the Director of Works, as a council, we change that priority system and move that road up, because things do change with developments and et cetera, things do change. But if you do move a road up to the top that was 30 or 40 down, you don't move something down to replace it down, you just move them all down one. And it means that our staff, if they've got this list, they can be planning next year's work 12 months in advance so that minimal delays, like no matter what you do with project planning, you'll have delays, but minimal delays when the workers get out onto the job, being planned properly, the work gets done faster and we get more work done for the money we've got. But finding more money is the hard part, and that's where we need to review where we put our money. Like, can we afford to build another football field, or should we be spending the money on roads? If we're getting further and further behind, we need to really focus on what is our priorities for a community and what the people really want. Do they really want a football stadium, or do they want better roads? And in my experience in 21 years on council, the first thing anyone says to me is, when are you going to fix the roads? And, you know, I cop flack, we all cop flack about it. I give it out as good as everyone else does. But it's so easy when you've got bad roads. And it's not just happened overnight. The roads don't fail overnight because of rain. They fail because they're already starting to fail. And you've only got to look at what Darracon done from Neath to Main 15 years ago. Hasn't got a pothole in it. 15 years. But we do a road like Duffy Drive and it failed in 6 months. We've done Frame Drive and look at that little couple hundred metres before the bridge, failed miserably. That sort of stuff, if you've got better project planning, it starts at the top. It starts with us, not down the bottom, the person doing the job. They're only as good as the person above them. And if the person above them is not giving them the right information, how can they do the job properly? So I support our director in implementing change in our workforce to make sure that they're getting the right information to do the job properly and we get better roads. And all I can say is, let's hope that from this motion, things move forward with our roads. It won't happen overnight. Nothing's going to happen overnight because there's so many roads need doing. But we see improvements and we see our workforce out there enjoying and getting the job done because they've got the right infrastructure in place for them.
Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, just briefly, does the mover and the seconder maybe think that a Wednesday night briefing would be a suitable forum to discuss this? I'm just reading that the General Manager report on how we prioritise roadworks. I'm kind of picturing you're going to want to ask further clarification and questions, and I think what you'd like is a discussion around this, as well as a formal report back to the council. So I suppose my question to the General Manager is, are there still Wednesday night briefing slots available that this could be put into?
Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Sabal. Yes, there would be slots available. They are filling up rapidly. My suggestion would be that dot point 2 of this resolution would also be reported back through the Roads Review Committee, which would then possibly facilitate what you are seeking to have happen, and do that in that format rather than one of the briefing nights. However, if the outcome out of the Roads Review Committee is that, you know, we need to have another briefing with councillors, we can certainly schedule that in at a point in time. But we need to get the information together and have that discussions with the Roads Review Committee and the councillors on it, noting that all councillors can attend any of those meetings. So I would certainly recommend, if the report comes out and we're going to discuss this item on that day at that meeting, that you all make yourselves available and come along to that Road Review Committee, and we can have those discussions during that format.
Are we notified? Is everybody notified of the Road Review Committee meetings?
The agenda for all council committee meetings are sent out to all councillors, as well as the members of the individual committees. And all councillors can attend any committee of council that they so wish to attend.
You're happy to leave it just at Road Review Committee?
Yeah, if we can make a vote, go back to Road Review Committee's fine.
I think my reading and understanding of it was both were required, both would go back to Roads Review, the way it's written. It's the first report goes to Roads Review and the second is just part of that same report. So, yeah. So they'll both be reported to the Roads Review Committee, where there can be an open discussion there, and if there needs to be a separate briefing, that can come subsequently to the Roads Review Committee. Okay, no further debate. We'll put that motion. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Yes. So, if you could put your so Councillor Olsen's moving that this motion be deferred.
Yes,
is
please.
that seconded, Councillor Hawkins? And as a procedural motion, I'll put that now. All those in favour? It's unanimous. We will now move on to councillor reports. Councillor Jackson.
I attended the Lower Hunter Bushfire Management Committee on the 1st of June, And the meeting was chaired by Peter Tarjani with the Forestry Corporation. And they discussed I actually don't know what this stands for, BFCC stands, on retardant type and usage, but it's ongoing. It was also determined that forestry is the responsible party for the convict bridge on Watagan Creek Road in Laguna and not Cessnock City Council. It was also confirmed that the Curry Curry Hospital, as a neighborhood safer place, is a health issue, and again, not the responsibility of Cessnock City Council. We were informed of the fuel management registry, and I've got a copy of it, which I'll hand over to the mayor, and you can pass it on to the right person. And I have to say, most of the meeting was spent with all the agencies there and councils reporting on the progress of all their hazard reductions in anticipation for the upcoming fire season, which is going to be busy thanks to all the rain, creating so much fuel load. So get your houses ready. I have a copy of the fuel management plan for 2022 and 23, which I'll give to the mayor, who can hand it over again also. I also attended the Hunter Water Customer and Community Advisory Group yesterday. It was really interesting. The operational update by the managing director gave us an update on the water storage, COVID-19 procedures, and the Hunter Water Scorecard. They were very happy to report that the Chichester Dam that supplies Cessnock LGA is 100% full as all the other dams, Grahamstown, Tomago sandbeds, and Anna Bay sandbeds. The strategic presentation updated us on the adoption of the Lower Hunter Water Security Plan and the next steps for implementation of the Hunter Water's water conservation and leakage targets and programs. I've got a website for that. And keep an eye out for a program called Respect the Throne. Very interesting. Hunter Water's sustainability strategy goals and objectives, including carbon reduction goals, were also discussed. And I've got a website for that as well, which will be in the minutes that I give to Robin. And there was a regulatory update presented on the Hunter Water's operating license and the next price path, which comes into effect on the 1st of July. And this is governed by IPART, the Independent Pricing and Regulatory Tribunal. And I'll put a website in the minutes as well. And that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I'll now ask councillors to move a procedural motion that we move into the confidential session of council. So moved Councillor Sanders, seconded Councillor Grine. All those in favour, it's unanimous. Yep, unanimous. So I'll now ask the gallery